Well, good evening, everybody, from where Helena and I are. I'm in Halifax, and Helena is just down the road in Elland. And we're here from the Brontë Lounge. So I may be a bit different to the usual presenter, Helen Mellor. Unfortunately, she can't be with us this evening. So I've stepped into her shoes and will hopefully do as good a job as she does. So this evening, I'm joined by Helena Whitbread as our guest. And thank you to all of you joining us too. Please pop in the chat box where you're joining us from. It's always lovely to see where people are tuning in from. This session is being recorded, so if you have any issues at all, it will be recorded and the recording will be sent out to everybody afterwards as well. If you have any questions during the chat, please pop them in the chat box. So just make sure you open that and pop any questions in there. I'll be keeping an eye on that as we go, if you've got any comments or any questions that we can put to Helena at the end. So my name's Angela and I'm the Programme Officer at the Brontë Parsonage Museum. I've not been there too long. Prior to this, I worked for Calderdale Museums, including Shibden Hall, home of Anne Lister. So I've got a bit of a connection with Helena and I met her several years ago and we've been in touch ever since and worked on several projects over the years as well. And I would say she's one of my very good friends over the years and she's been a wonderful supporter of my work there. And when I started at the Brontë Parsonage, I thought I'd quite like to interview Helena again. So I'm very pleased that she could join us today. I'll introduce her very shortly, but just to say, for those of you who might not be as familiar with Anne Lister, it's her birthday today, Anne Lister, on the 3rd of April. She was born back in 1791. So she's a bit older than the Brontes, but again, their lives, very similar periods, similar time, and some similar experiences as well. And we'll be talking about any connections between Anne Lister and the Brontes later on as well. So this evening, I'm joined by Helena Whitbread. So Helena Whitbread is the editor, decoder of Anne Lister's diaries, who first published back in 1988 and was the first person to really share Anne's gender, sexuality, and the secret content in her coded sections of the diaries. Helena, I hope she doesn't mind me saying, was born in Halifax in 1931, and she now lives just down the road in Elland. Helena is an author, a teacher, a speaker, an advisor to others, and she was a graduate at the age of 52 as well. She's been working on the Anne Lister diaries since 1983 and has published in 1988, I Know My Own Heart, and in 1992, No Priest But Love, both of which have been reproduced several times since. Yes. And been used as the basis for not one, but 2 TV series, which we'll come to as well. So Helena, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Not at all. Pleased to oblige, Angela.
And here we are on Anne Lister's birthday.
Absolutely, yes. I thought that. I mean, it's going mad in Halifax at the moment, you know. Yes.
Yes, yeah.
It's enormous money and kudos. And yeah, whereas one time Anne Lister was hidden, you know, behind the walls and.
Yeah. So tell us a bit, first of all, we'll talk a bit about you first.
Okay.
How you've lived and worked in this region your whole life. So tell us a bit about your career and how you ended up publishing.
Oh, my career was very, very varied and very odd. I was born in Halifax in 1931. Yes, I was born on the Square, which is a very historic place next to. And in fact, John Lister was still alive when I was born. He was still living up at Shibden Hall. And his secretary, his accountant, solicitor, lived 2 doors away from the house that I was born in. So there's a really good link with the Listers there. We moved when I was about 2 years old to a little house in a place called Woolshops, and was Riley's yard. Just house. We're a largish family eventually. There were just 3 houses in the square, and the other 2 ladies, the other 2 families, just 1 child each. So there were we, a large Irish family, romping around the yard. But anyway, we left there when I was about 8. We moved. I've lived in various places around Halifax. I didn't live back in Halifax, but I lived in places like, well, now Elland. I've lived in and Illingworth, you know. So, but I've always been within the perimeters, yeah, of Halifax. And I must admit, I've always loved my town, always. But finding the Anne Listers, you know, absolutely fantastic. my, I did pass for college. I went to St Joseph's for Catholics in Bradford, Olive Road. But unfortunately, at the age of 13, I fell ill and I went away, to the seaside, stay with my aunt there. And I never went back to school. So my education was really cut short. And I never went back to school. So then on, it was a variety of I went in for children's nursing at the children's hospital. Now, because I couldn't stand the disinfectants, my skin, just couldn't take it. Year in psychiatric, not as a patient, as a trainee nurse, then studying Guiseley. And then I came home and I went for a short spell as a bus conductress. The war, and they were just women had to do what the jobs that men for, and you could either do that or go into the land army or something like that. But that was where I met my husband. So, and yes, we got married. I was 21, and and again, some indiscriminately, really, all the time. I think. But in my mind, there was always this yearning to educate. I was very conscious of having lost my education. So I was an avid reader. And then I was encouraged to go back. Oh, I was doing a bit of art in that time as well. And then a young man came in, he was a student, I'm chatting to him, and he encouraged me to finish my education, which I did. Got to A-levels and went into the civil service for about 8 years as a tax officer. And then I thought, Lord, with this, I think I'll go to kids. Or, Rachel was the last one. She was still at home, still, she was, teen, so it's fine. And then, so I applied to go to Bradford University, and I was then 1970s. And I was there 3 years in literature. Years, and took a PGCE teacher, and I was in the teaching. I'm retired, but only as a supply worker, because I thought at 52, no career there, being teaching, not a proper answer. Do some freelance writing, and this is where I discovered wonderful journals, and started decoding them. Took 50 pages a week home. I had a copy of the code. So I had wonderful years. Nobody knew what I was doing. Nobody said, I'm literally around years. Yeah, sexual. But I say I'm liberated from the shady annals of history. So,
you certainly did liberate it.
And my books. And then my books. At the end of 5 years, I applied to Brontë, and they took me home.
Sorry, Helena, you just cut out a little bit there. Can you just lean in a little bit for us? I'm not sure what's happening. It's just a bit quiet sometimes. If you can, perfect. If you can stay forwards. Sorry. So
is that right? Is that
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah,
okay.
Perfect. We'll see how we get on. The internet is not our friend sometimes. So a very busy life then, and finding the time then to discover Anne Lister and taking some of it home with you each week, and then graduating, and then first publication. So that was Viragos. That was in 1988. So tell us about how that was received when you first shared.
It was very, very much under the radar. I think Virago published about 5,000. It's in the first. and it didn't attract an audience, a readership, a general readership. It was very much in the academic world, the academic people, really. It was an astonishing thing for them to find because it altered. I think other writers that have written about women with, women friends living together, and that maintained there was no sex in, before about what, 1890. Well, of course, there was a coterie of lesbian sex going on in Halifax, so who would have thought that? Our obscure little town, So the no sex theory was certainly thrown out of the window, yes, when Anne Lister's journals were reviewed.
And why do you think nobody else had published or shared them before? Why do you think it took you to reveal?
I know. Well, before Freedom of Information Act, the journals, anybody could go down and read them, but not the coded bits. And they could publish anything like Dan Lister's on politics, on local politics, medicine, whatever, ordinary things. But there was a ban on decoding the coded extracts. Of course, as I went through them, I saw why at the time. But fortunately for me, it hadn't happened. So I was able to, I went down this one particular day and there was this young Scottish archivist there. Never seen him before, never seen him since. And I always think, I hadn't gone down on that particular day, I don't think I would have been alerted. I don't, but I may have been. And so he just said, I was after her letters, see, because I thought that was all that existed. And then he said, did you know she kept it? Well, the flags went up, alert, a journal. This is bound to be much more intimate than letters. So, of course, he brought me to town. And just the key to the code there, answer it. Why are we here now?
So we just lost you a little bit at the end. So so there was somebody there that you weren't expecting to see, and they were the person that gave you the code and revealed all to you.
And yes, I'd expected that there would be a great part in the town, I was actually moving out of town, but I wasn't. The reception was friendly, not from chat. I remember, the media, the press, and academics inundated with those sort of posts, some people interested in. One journalist said to me, come on, we'll go for a walk around Shubling Park on a busy day. We'll ask people that were around there and know that. One person mentioned journalists. So, as I say, it went down marvellously in the academic world, very much until some next film.
Great. So we've got, sorry, the audio is a bit crackly, Helena. I'm not sure what we can do to improve it. Just keep leaning in and speak as loudly as you can.
Okay. Yeah.
We're missing a few bits, but we can tell what you're saying. So
Yes.
you published that in 1988, and then you published again in 1992. So this was looking more at the years of Anne in France, wasn't it?
That's right. Yes.
You did that bit because obviously you read all of the diaries and all the sections. What made you select those particular parts to?
Well, what made that happen was that the initial manuscript that I sent to Barango included all the Parisian bit. So anyway, they came back to me and they said, look, we do want to take the book, but it's far too long. Can you take some extracts out? And I, here and there. And I thought, no, I can't. But what I am going to do, I'm going to lift the whole of that Parisian period out. See, I actually got 2 books of the manuscript, and but Virago didn't seem particularly keen to publish the second book, and the second book is much more. People say, why is there more sexual content first? And I said, she didn't write about it as much. But I think they were a bit shy of the sex. So I thought, what am I going to do with it then? And I'd met a woman called Caroline Davidson. She wrote The World of Mary Ellen Best. And she was in Mary Ellen Best, that was a niece of Norcliffe, who was one of Anne Lister's lovers. So she was third somehow that I was doing journals. So she asked if I would give any hints about the Norcliffe family. And then I told her about I couldn't get this second book published. I know who published it. Came up London, took me to Otley. So, but he only published 2,000. He's the book without. And then New York University Press published both books. So, and it was still fairly under the radar. Is it still? It's in this dialogue.
Sorry, I missed that bit. Sorry.
I say, is the dialogue that we're talking, is it still in it's, or is it okay? You know, is it breaking up?
It's breaking up a little bit. Yeah, we're getting some of it. So I'm not sure.
Oh, what a shame.
I know. I'm not quite sure. You're doing really well. Just keep speaking loudly and clearly. But I'm not sure if we can improve it at all. Sorry, anybody listening that's struggling. The captions are a bit helpful.
Yes.
We can never help with the internet. So it sounds like it's been quite a journey then. And could you have imagined back in 1988 and 1992 that people would be dressed as Anne Lister and walking around Halifax today? Could you have imagined this?
I know. Yes. And I mean, they come from America. In fact, this week, a lady there from Russia, she come all the way from Russia. And this, you know, everywhere. I mean, every country. So, you know, it's really gone far and wide. Brought a lot of income. You know, the hotels, shops, B&Bs. So, yeah. So from the day when Anne Lister couldn't be mentioned, now it's all over. Yeah,
it's such a huge change, isn't it? I think now we get visitors. Obviously, obviously we're from the Brontë Parsonage tonight, so obviously the Brontes have always attracted so many people from throughout the world, and I feel like now there is another reason to visit this area, that people are combining the two visits and coming to see not just the Brontes but also popping over to see what Anne Lister and what all this fuss is about, another woman trailblazer from the same sort of period, and vice versa. I think if people are coming because of Anne Lister, of course they're going to get on the bus or the train and pop along and see the Brontë Parsonage as well. So I think there's a lot of people looking at both, and I think just being inspired by you know, all the amazing women that we have from this area. Who knew that? So tell us a bit. So obviously you've lived here your whole life, so tell us a bit about the Brontes, and have you visited Haworth, and when did you come across them and their work?
Oh, yes, I didn't know about Haworth when I was a child, because to take all the brood over to Haworth and that sort of just money was always. So I wasn't aware until I read Jane Eyre. I was about 12. Yes. So from then on, I was hooked on Hat and Wuthering Heights. But my favourite Brontë novel is Villette. I mean, I just love that book. Yes. When I got married and had the children, I used to take them on Sundays, and my husband as well. So we did see quite a bit of them. We did go into the parsonage, but mostly we just, So yes, Haworth was my favourite place to go to. And the children loved it.
And when was the most recent time you went? What can you remember the last time you visited?
The last time I visited, I think I was with Anchona.
Mm.
Yes, because she made that film. Sally Wainwright made that film, didn't she?
You Walk Invisible, yeah.
Yes, and I think Anne had some of a little bit. She was very friendly with Sally at the time, so we went for a meal, and then she took me up to the mock village that they'd done up there. The mock, it was still all there. Yeah, and there was this big man there guarding it, and he was very, Yorkshire, very dark. And I went, oh, Heathcliff's, just like the type.
Yeah, and I think that was just before everything changed for Anne Lister. So To Walk Invisible, we're coming up to the 10-year anniversary now.
Oh,
It was
really? Yeah,
2016 that was released, and
really.
some of that was filmed at Shibden Hall,
Mm,
and Sally went on to
yeah,
film Gentleman Jack at Shibden Hall. So
yeah.
it's all connected in some way, isn't it? So you mentioned Villette. So can you tell me about why is Villette your favorite? I want to ask more about that.
Um, I don't know. I think it just grabbed me more than even Wuthering Heights. Although I mean that was fantastic. I read that as well. And there's something about Villette, and I can never understand why I was so attracted. But um, I've got books like Down the Balliot Steps, and Anne Lister in Brussels, and I sort of really felt culturally it must have been that, as well as her education and her love affair, well, her unrequited love affair with that professor at the school. And I don't know, oh, yeah, it was romantic and but rather understated, not like Wuthering Heights where it was grand passion and all this, there was this quiet, studious girl who was agonizing all the time. She was just, I was talking to a young man once and he was talking about the Brontë, says, have you read Villette? And he said, oh, I don't like reading a book with a woman's name on it. I said, it's not a woman's name, it's a town. Oh, I said, I might buy it then. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Villette, and that would be my supreme choice. Mm.
Yeah. And again, so I know I sent some questions to you beforehand asking about any links between Anne Lister and the Brontes, and you had a good look for me. So can you tell me a bit about Anne Lister's reading and novels that she might
Yes.
have come across? And
What Anne Lister's novels?
mm,
Um, yes.
interest, yeah.
Oh, I think this was my last bit of research. Yeah, the novels here. Yeah. Well, I think she wasn't a reader of novels, as she says, she was read. The first reference she made, as far as I knew, was that she bought it in Paris, and it was Monk, Matthew Lewis, and I don't know what I know of. It was one of the first Gothic novels, but it was a scandalous. Yes, it dealt with themes really pornographic, and it was all about it was an immediate scandalous success because of the lurid nature of some of its themes. The book caused offence Catholic Church. They made the publishers throw it. But anyway, they published a second version with a lot of the scenes taken out. But I was really surprised. But of course, Anne did have a great interest in Gothic. So she did make one or two references. She did read it when she got back home. She said, "Oh, the Monk, a strange work of passion and ruin. How it excites in me the thoughts of all that is ungoverned and forbidden, the desire for what one cannot have, and the joy in seeking it. There is something familiar about it in my own heart." So she was impressed with it, Now, the second novel that I was reading, the Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, and she was reading it aloud to the Belcombe family in York, all the girls, you know, and she wasn't pleased. She didn't like reading it. And her comment on this novel, Ivanhoe, was, "This novel is good of its kind and a pretty faithful picture of the manners of Richard I, but I am tired of novels that are, after all, but a tale that is told, and I am heartily rejoiced to finish this." So that was Walter Scott, you know, his shelved. But one dark February afternoon in 1831, she indulged herself by picking up a novel entitled Leontine de Blondheim, and the theme of it mirrored her own disastrous love affair with Mariana Lawton, and she was completely unhinged. And she said, "It is altogether a very interesting thing, and I have read it with a sort of melancholy feeling, the very germ of which I thought had died forever. I cried a good deal over the second volume, and more over the third this morning, and as soon as I was alone during supper. I find my former feelings are too soon awakened, and I have still more romance than can let me bear the stimulus of the fearful rousing of novel reading. I must not indulge it. I must keep to graver things and strongly occupy myself with other thoughts and with exile." So, you know, that really, really upset her. And then finally, I think that's the final one, yeah. And there may be more, but for the main ones that I picked out, you know, but there wouldn't be many more. She read Frankenstein, another Gothic novel. During the winter of 1831-2, Anne was staying in Hastings with dear Hobart, to whom she acted chaperone, and inevitably fell in love. Always falling in love with one. One evening, Anne began reading aloud Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. She found odd, strangely odd, genuine-like and cleverly written. But Vere was really disturbed by it, Miss Hobart. She frightened by it. Said, "I was reading Frankenstein aloud to Miss Hobart till it made her nervous." So Miss Hobart preferred to the non-fiction of Gibbon's The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. So fortunately, that was Gibbon was Anne's favourite historian. But in her own room, she avidly read the 2 volumes of Frankenstein over 2 days, commenting that the novel was a strangely odd, genius-like, cleverly written film. Those were the 4 examples I picked out, you know, so
Wow.
I think she was attracted to the Gothic novel, but and of course the romantic one really, you know, it really upset her because it's like her own disastrous love affair with Mariana Lawton.
And it sounds like that was enough to put her off novels, because there's not many references, are there, in the diaries to novels?
There are not to novels, really.
Yeah, I mean, for those who aren't aware, so Anne died in 1840, so obviously the Brontë novels are 47 onwards, so
Yeah.
it wasn't an overlap there, but it's interesting to think that her friends and family may well have read them later on.
Yeah,
But yeah, not quite in Anne's lifetime, but some wonderful references there. Thank you for looking those out.
Yes,
And I think being so upset by that, I mean, that would probably be enough to put her off reading any other novels.
I know.
That hard to read.
She couldn't stand sentimental music either, you know?
Yeah. I'm very dismissive of them. I know in York that there's references in the bookshop there of all the subscribers, and they include Mariana, and they
Oh,
all
right.
include her sister Marion.
Mm,
They're all subscribing to the novels, but Anne
yes.
Rice's name doesn't appear.
No,
So
no,
she
not on
obviously
novels.
not interested, but then she might have borrowed them and
Mm,
kind
mm,
of
she wouldn't, I don't think, unless they were Gothic, you know.
yeah, but it's very
Mm,
the reaction to that's really interesting. It sounds like she quite liked scaring Via.
mm. Yeah, but Vera Hobart had very hastings. She kept Anne Lister in check.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to see. I think it's always those questions, aren't there? What ifs? What if they'd known of each other? What if Anne had lived longer and read those novels? What would she have thought? She probably would have tried Wuthering Heights, I think.
Mm,
Especially if she heard all the comments about it, she'd be thinking, well, I must try it for myself and see what it's about.
yeah. Mm,
No, thank you for sharing those with us. And
that's
then
it.
I wonder what and again, do we have any mention anywhere of Anne visiting Haworth or coming sort of in that area, or did she stick really to Halifax, York,
What
and
much?
Manchester?
How? No, I've not seen a reference to her going to Howard. No, I haven't. Um, the Brontes weren't. Howard wasn't famous in those days. You know, the novels hadn't been written, etc. And she was also fairly limited as a young woman. You know, you ask about the landscape, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a little bit of research on that, and I thought, now let's see. Well, first of all, the town of Halifax, and originally it was surrounded by open fields and commons and wasteland. But the Enclosure Acts of the 19th and early 18th centuries redefined the landscape. It was put patchwork fields and enclosed by dry stone walls, you see. Well, Isabella Norcliffe lived at Malton, and there were the voles there, and they could ride for miles and scenery all around and that sort of thing. Very, very, still very natural countryside. And Anne Lister was a little jealous of all this. And after reading Isabella's eulogies about the beauty of the landscape around Malton, Anne writes back comparing the country about Malton to that around Halifax. And she says, Malton is not only generously stocked with game, but divided into convenient enclosures, and not like ours, set out, as it were, into baby grounds and crowded on all sides with stone walls. The only sporting diversion worth pursuing with us is the moor game shooting, which in some seasons is very good. But these were about to alter for. Another letter to Isabella, a few weeks later, she writes, I now see more of the country than ever, as my father lately bought me a nice little spirited horse, and my brother is good enough to be a most agreeable companion whenever I am in the humour. We take very pleasant and sometimes very long rides indeed, and we have every inducement, as the landscape everywhere interesting, and in many places delightfully varied and the sublime. So, having got the horse, she was in fact able to realize that, in fact, as you travel beyond the town of Halifax, it's actually set in very diverse landscape with moorlands, valley, woodlands, and certainly very many areas out in the countryside surrounding Halifax could fit under its concept of the sublime and beautiful. You use extract. But the Bronte sisters were also very, very aware of that sort of concept, sublime and beautiful. You know, you think, for instance, like Cragvale, and went there, places like that, which she never would have if she had done. So she stayed over at Hebden Bridge. You know, she and her aunt, they lodged in that horse. So, so she certainly transformed her view of the landscape. At first, boring with little walls all over the place. She couldn't find for long anywhere. But as soon as she got the horse, she was out and found the beautiful and the
Yeah, and I think that's again the influence in, we're trying to just find those connections between these women of a similar period that, again, just the being outside the landscape. Anne was always, keen to explore by the sounds of it and get outside. And again, we live in very harsh landscape. Again, it's been very modernized, obviously, since, the last 200 years, but, it was a very harsh landscape to live in back then.
The Pennine Hills, they're very rugged. Yes. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And you've got to, again, it's trying to picture back 200 years ago how little there would have been. And Haworth would have been a tiny settlement back then. And even Halifax would have been much smaller than it is today. So, very different world they lived in. But
yes,
it's
absolutely
that, influence and impact. The other two things I just thought I'd mention sort of, again, when we think of the Brontes, obviously we've got the novels and their letters. So again, with Anne, we've got lots and lots of letters that she wrote. Obviously with Anne uniquely, we have the diaries, but then with Emily and Anne, we have their diary pages that they wrote, which was predicting, well, their hopes and fears for what was going to happen in 4 years' time, which give us lovely insights into what they're thinking. And again, they seem to have been written just for themselves, so they're very personal and quite private.
Yes, absolutely, especially Emily.
Especially, yeah. And with poetry, obviously the Brontes are very known for their poetry. Have you come across Anne having attempts at poetry or that kind of writing at all creatively in the diaries?
Are you asking whether is this the question about did she ever want to publish this one?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. So did she ever want to share anything that she wrote? And did she have poetry that she wrote at all, or did she mainly read other people's?
Jingle, some. I mean, and as it's something like words that mix and mingle are, after all, just a jingle. Things like that. It create 1 or 2 points. I would have dug them out, thought that would come up.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. Yeah,
she could write poetry. It was a, poetry. I don't think it would. I mean, it was nice, but not, not first class.
Yeah.
It wasn't what shall we say? Great poet.
Yeah. So do you think she intended to, so do you think Anne intended to publish herself then? Was she looking to share the diaries and the travel notes?
Well, I did pick out a few things about her ambitions to publish. When she was up in Shibden Hall, of course, she was very sequential, shall we say. She went into town, really a target for gossip, and it was rumoured that she must be writing something with the intention to work. And when she got back, she wrote in her diary, she said, Miss Staveley told me she was in anxious expectation of seeing something from my pen, as she and everyone made sure of my intention to publish. People seem wonderfully impressed with this idea, now that I keep myself snug, at home. So they weren't actually too far out in their surmises. And at various intervals, Anne confided her literary ambitions to her journal. She said, I spent all the evening talking to my wife. I talked of my ambition in the literary way, of my wish for a name in the world. Well, be careful what you wish for, Anne. All of which she will second. And then she even went so far as to contemplate writing up her love affair with Mariana. She said, thought I would write an account of my acquaintance with Mariana, surely in a series of letters to a friend. Think of calling myself constant durer, on the verb dure, to endure. Finally, musing as I went and returned this morning on writing a work on women to follow up a petition to Parliament for women under proper restrictions, property owners and that, being allowed to vote. I have long thought of the latter. They ought, in fact, to have. So she did always have at the back of her mind, that could write something and could publish it. Well, I'm sure she would write it, yes.
Yeah, it's great to hear that she was interested. I think that kind of lessens the fact that we've shared everything she wrote, that she did have some aspirations. I think
Mhm.
they're really interesting comments that she did say. And, I think it's nice that people thought what's going in the
I
diaries
know.
and what's
Oh,
going
I
to happen
know.
to it.
Yes. In fact, it was around the town. Don't say anything to Anne Lister. It all goes in the diaries, you
I
know.
know, and it did, and we've shared
Oh,
it.
they knew she was writing about them all. Yeah.
Who knew? Who knew? So no, I wonder what a question again is I wonder what Anne would think today to people being in her home and grounds and looking at her possessions. It was obviously that's what's happened to the Bronte sisters again, and that happened with the Brontes. It happened during Charlotte's life. There was the
Yes.
fandom, and there was people wanting things, and then obviously
Really.
the
Yeah.
father
Mhm.
curated that a bit at the start, but with Anne Lister, it all come much later. What do you
Mm.
think she would think to that invasion of privacy?
She would be horrified. Oh, I mean, the snobbishness of them, you know. I'm fine if it's lady this and not that, you know. I
Mm,
mean, the ladies hang off when they, you know, Uncle Tom probably and all get into their house to talk with them and eat. You know, she did have, she did visit the ladies, and she thought this would be the ideal sort of retreat for my nuns. And the retreat and isolation and privacy and all that was very, very important. She, and not only that, her uncle is, he was so, he used to agonize, you know, about, oh God, you could only see, you know, Mrs. I couldn't believe that he's still like a tin tea, you know, and China. That's what I think. I'm sort of ashamed of her uncle's way of living, although
mm,
he was brilliant. He's a
mm.
grumpy old man, you know.
And I think that's kind of the tragedy of Anne Lister, again, for those who might not sort of know. So she died, she was 49, was that right, when she
Yeah,
died?
yes, yes, she died
Um,
in 1840.
Yeah, so she was still very young in some,
Mm-hmm.
old for some people of the time, but again, I suppose all of this ambition was there waiting to come out, sort of, after her final big trip, as it was. So yeah, who again, there's so many questions like who knows what she would have shared and what she would have done with the diaries. Do you think she
Yes,
got rid of the diaries or?
ideas that you send them, I think, but another one was that she wanted to keep them and reread them in her old age,
Okay.
where the bits were uplifting and where she realized that she would be, you know, she didn't use the word shame back on her peccadillos and things, you know. So she had a divided feeling about that, but fortunately for her, she didn't get back to burn them. That was awful, wasn't it?
Yeah. So tell us a bit about you then, back to you as a writer. So can you tell us a bit about places that you've spoken and things you've been involved with? So TV series and plays and other writers doing novels and things.
Yes, well, as I say, when the books first came out, I was very known. I once was going to be taught at Bradford University, my old university. So I did go, and one person turned up, and that was an Asian boy. So that sort of told me how under the radar it was, you know. But then as time went on, and of course, Anne Choma and I went to Paris to research for work, resume book. And then, of course, Gentleman Jack just absolutely blew the top. So I was invited to universities abroad, Berlin, one in Zurich, Paris, Italy. I went to Bologna, so Bologna. And, you know, I was really, and I got an invite to Warsaw, but couldn't go because of you go to Zurich, you go to Warsaw, but I didn't think I'd accepted this one. And then, of course,
Sorry, we've lost you a bit there again, Helena. Come
Yeah,
again.
lots of universities around Britain, you know, Leeds University, Queen Mary University, and of course giving talks to loads and loads. And films. I've made a film actually with Pat Estate. It's gone out and to have a reading.
So we're just cutting out a little bit. So tell us about that film. Is that available online, or where could we see
Yes,
that?
it's online. Yes, you can apply for a ticket. LBW. It's on. Jen was writing the film in Australia.
Okay.
Helped to create the film, you know. Yeah, so there we go. That's come out now, so it's there for people to click on it for a fee of about.
And what's that called, Helena? What's the film called?
Helena Whitbread, her moral is that this was because didn't want to say her oral history, but she wanted to know, like you just said, how come it was you, the particular person, to be unlisted? Say you were brought up in poverty, you left school at 13. What was it? How come that you come until you produced changed nature and gone global? Yeah, so yeah. So it's that.
Oh, so we'll have to
What
look into
you?
that then. And do you think that it's do you think perhaps you were just the right person at the right time, and your lives have become quite entwined over these years?
Certain links, aren't there? You know, there's certain peculiar things. Like, why did my family settle in Halifax? Oh, came over from Ireland. My great uncle was deputy head Catholic school in Halifax. Why he settled there, I don't know. Then my father came over. He was in Bradford with relatives. And Arthur, the headmaster, had two daughters. And they were friends with my mother. So they were all girls in the same Catholic parish, you know, St. Bernard's parish in Halifax. And one of them said, I'm going over to Bradford to see relations. Do you want to come? And my mother went over, and my father had just arrived from Ireland. Apparently, he immediately fell. My mother, you see, and then he spent, you know, travelling from Bradford to Halifax, usually walking because he had no money, to Quarter. So that was fun. How did all these Irish people? I mean, my mother was, her parents were Irish. They were very, very strong on Irish heritage. And so from that, I grew up, as I said. And I think the next peculiar incident, which makes you feel that somehow or other you're being directed, but you can't see that till later, you know. When I was barmaiding, this man was a student at university. He came in and we were talking, and he said, "Oh, I'm reading the Brontë, check out." And I said, "Oh, no, you mean Ibsen?" And he went, "What do you know? You're only a barmaid, you know." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I shouldn't have said it." So anyway, next night I came back. I owe you an apology at the time. He says, "So what are you doing being a barmaid?" And I said, "I'm clever." He said, "If you were reading Norwegian and Russian playwrights," he says, "you're clever and finish your education." So I did, and that's when I got my 5 O levels, 2 A levels. I've never seen that young man since. And then, of course, the second incident was in the archives. It was only there for one particular day that I decided to go down to the archives. So I say, well, as I say in
sorry, sorry, Helen, just go back a little bit. We just missed that last bit.
Oh, I thought, well, I said in a questionnaire that I was answering, I won't pinch what did we call him? Oh, couldn't see it. they said, I felt the hand of history. I sure remember. And yeah, oh, I can't think. Blair, Blair, wasn't it? Yeah. I felt, you know, when Di died, yeah, Diana died, and he came out and he said, I felt the hand of history. I said, I won't pinch his line, but I definitely thought that the Cleo, the muse of history, was in Iraq, directing me. So you don't know, do you? But it's these sort of isolated incidents, every one of them, that led to publishing the books and worldwide global interest and flooded Halifax. Money.
And it's all your fault for flooding Halifax.
All my fault. All my fault. Oh dear.
It's not Anne's, it's your fault. And I think everybody's very grateful that you did. I mean, I think the fact that there were, you know, from that first publication, and I think it's a thank you really for being brave enough to do that first publication and follow it up with the second one and get that out there. It almost sort of paved the way. And I think you said that you lit a slow fuse.
Yeah, that's what my headmaster said.
Back then, yeah, and it's carried on, and I think people couldn't quite imagine what it is like today. And I think, again, it gives us another remarkable woman that we can talk about today and share her story, and another visitor attraction in the area.
Rachel's going a walk with my daughter, notable women in Halifax, you know. She says, I put your name in, Mom, you know. And I says, oh, and who else have you put in? And she, you know, she laughed. She gave me a few names. Says, oh, what that person? You know, one of them was Lily Fogg, who was at the time the local prostitute. But she was well known. Yeah.
And then I've got just a few questions popping through in the chat. We've got, somebody's asked, have you ever spoken at St. Joseph's, your old school in Halifax?
Oh, yeah.
Have you spoken there at all or been back at all?
No. Is that one of the people there when I was there?
Somebody's just asking if you've been back there.
I've been back once, just once, I think. Yes, we went to a reunion for old students. Yeah, but I didn't say anything about my book. You know, yeah. So yes, and my cousins, she went to Brontë College as well, at St. Joseph's, yeah. So it was two of my sisters went. You know, it's quite a family thing, really. Although my mother.
And then another question was a quick one, was how much of the diaries are still to be translated, transcribed? I think they're all done now, aren't they?
Well, they're finished. They're finished. It's all accessible. Yeah. Oh, I wish I'd had that when I'm 5 years. You know.
I know, because I think
I was doing it all by hand.
Yeah, I remember when I first met you, you showed me your cupboards full of
No, I have 24 files with the handwritten transcripts. Yeah.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, so Anne wrote probably about a third of the diaries, about a third of the diaries in code.
I don't think it's quite so much, because as she grew up and was, you know, got married to Anne Walker, it was all about coal and all that, you know. So there was less coding, and I think it's about 50.
Okay.
There were 5 words, you see. Yeah. But
so
most of the coding was in their early years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot to read, and I think translated is the word, but it's transcribed. It was
transcribed. Yeah.
It was their own private code that was letter for letter, and there's no punctuation in it, is there? So you have to kind of make the best of.
You don't know where a sentence starts or ends, where a paragraph. You know, you've got to just transcribe the whole string, and then you've got to start chopping them up. Well, if you said that there, where would that sentence end? You've got to get the context. Make sense of it. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with the diaries when you read them, that it's not always clear who's talking or what she's on about.
I know.
Also, there's that she has edited, you know, we think because of the volume you assume she's written down every single thing, but there are a lot of gaps, aren't there, and things she doesn't mention. So it is a translation, but they are all on there. So it's West Yorkshire Archives have them, and they've got original scans of the pages, and they've all been transcribed now, so you can just download the PDFs and dive in. The question that we've also got was, so for you, Helena, so are there specific parts of Anne Lister's journals that you like to revisit, or any passages that particularly stuck with you?
I am revisiting the Anne Lister journals perpetually, virtually every day. I am really. The part that stuck with me, to be quite honest, I'm very attached to a period that isn't well documented. And that was the Eliza Reid story. You know, Anne's first lover, in York, and that is such a story. You know, I did a talk called "Eliza Reid Came to Town," and to live in Halifax for years, and I did a sketch. You know, men fell in love with her, and one of them wanted to court Anne Lister, and of course these two men didn't realise that, you know, and that is so. But it's also sad, Eliza Reid's life, because she finished.
Oh, sorry, we've lost you again, Helena. Can you say that last bit again? We've just lost you.
Yeah.
Eliza,
Oh, right. Yes, Eliza Reid had a sad ending. You know, it wasn't all fun, and once she met Isabella North, yes, got over Eliza Reid. Eliza Reid couldn't get over. Not, I mean, she was mentally ill, I think. And anyway, it's a long story. Can't say it here. You know, haven't got the time. Oh well, I don't want to bore everybody today.
And I think that's covered a bit in Emma Donoghue's novel. So again, she's the original diaries, and then she's interpreted that into a novel. So yeah, I think so. Is there anything that really sticks with you about Anne? What's your favorite? Have you got a favorite quote or a favorite thing about Anne that you connect to?
Well, of course, what is so good about Anne, or so moral about? She never deviated her sexuality, and the quote that is most popular, she wrote, "I love and only love fairer sex, and thus, beloved by them, my heart revolts any other love than theirs." This is how I am, this is how I live, nothing is going to move me.
And I think that's what can relate to anybody, really. It's not necessarily about your sexuality. It's just about sticking to what you believe, what you feel, and being true to yourself. I think that's what I've heard resonate from a lot of the fans. It's not about, you know, anything in particular. It's just more that she, you know, she knew what she wanted. She knew what she didn't want.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, God, I am the creature that God made, and this is, if you give me like this, then which you were saying is valid. You know, it was meant to be.
Yeah. And what's a quick question to finish with was, what's your reaction to Gentleman Jack? Did you think it was accurate? Was it how you saw Anne Lister?
Well, of course, I've been more concerned with Anne Lister's earlier romance life. Sally was really into the Anne Walker marriage and the coal mining, and that I thought it was brilliant. But so but it wasn't my area, shall we say? But you could not fault it. I mean, absolutely. Yes.
Oh, that's great to hear. So
But
so you did an adaptation of the earlier years based on your books now, don't we?
Well, I like the romantic, and I'm not saying she wasn't romantic with Anne Walker, but she was also quite mercenary. So, you know, and she has no title, but her money might make up for that. Of course, Anne was always after a title, and she tried various titled women, but I'll go home and that's companion. And then she reflected.
Oh, sorry, we've lost you again. Just say that last bit again. Sorry, Helena.
She said, I go home and find myself a companion. And then she thought, oh, it's Anne Walker. has no title, but her money, my makeup.
If it was a novel, we wouldn't believe it, would we?
No, well, of course, Rosa Kettle wrote a novel, didn't she? But she fictionalized Anne Lister and made her heterosexual. Yes.
Made it easier to sell it.
Yeah. Well, in those days, it was about 1890, you know. She was staying at Shibden Hall with John Lister.
Yeah, that was the first novel of Anne Lister's life. So, well, Helena, I think we're going to have to round up to the end. So, well, this will be it is recorded, and we'll send this out to you, so you can listen again. Well, Helena, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Not at all.
I feel like we needed a couple of sessions, really. There's so much to talk about, and we hopefully gone on some of the similarities, the differences, the crossovers with the Brontes, and again, just remarkable women from this time. And also yourself, Helena, very remarkable for your career, your life, and also
certainly caused an uproar.
It's all your fault.
All my fault again. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing, and please continue to share. I know you've got other work that you want to share, and you're still working with lots of researchers and on lots of projects as well. I know there's a play that's going to hopefully be at Holdsworth House later in the year. So we look forward to seeing that. So we look forward to seeing your play later in the year.
Oh yes, that play at Holdsworth House.
Yeah, so look on their website for dates, and obviously Helena's got her website, Anne Lister. So do search for Helena. There's lots of films online. There's the new one with ALBW, interview with Helena. There's also some, if you look through Shibden Hall's website, there's various links there as well. That's all from Helena for this evening. So thank you everyone for joining us. Sorry about a bit of the glitchiness in the sound. We can only apologise. Internet's not always great. We can only do what we can, but hopefully most of that made sense and you got lots of insights from Helena. So next month on the Brontë Lounge, we're joined by Nick Ahad. So please have a look on our website for details of that. We've also got our programme coming out for the rest of the year from July to December. Lots of things to look forward to. Again, main thing is look on the website, sign up to our newsletter, and share as best you can with other people. Let them know the kind of things that we're doing. So a final thank you to everyone for joining us. And we've got lots of comments. Helena saying, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. They will say.
Bye.
Right, thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.